Hello and welcome to the Virtual Concert Hall's live show. Today I have the great pleasure of interviewing a concert flautist who is one of the many amazing judges from this year's Sound Espressivo Global Competition. She is a prolific recording artist, and we will be playing some excerpts from her albums as well as discussing her journey in her musical career. Thank you for joining us. It's going to be an amazing show. So Rita D'Arcangelo is our guest for today, and she began her flute studies at the State Conservatory of Music in Italy, in Pescara, Italy to be exact. And she graduated with distinction studying with Sandro Carbone. And she also went to study at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester, the International Academy of Music in Milan, and also the Hochschule for Music in Mannheim. She also has the privilege of having worked with Sir James Galway, who we will talk about a little bit today in terms of how they both managed to have a career in concertizing, recording, and playing all around the world. And she has served for first flute in several orchestras in Italy and abroad, including the Orchestral Academy of Orchestra Sinfonica, after Arturo Toscanini in Parma, l'Orchestre de Jeunes de l'Union Européenne, the University Orchestra of Milan, and all over Europe, including in places like Spain and China. She was selected in 2008 to be a member of the Hyogo Performing Arts Center Orchestra in Japan under the artistic direction of Yutaka Sado. She was principal flautist with the Hyogo Orchestra from 2008 to 2011. From 2011 to 2013, she was position of the principal flautist of the CA Philharmonia Gossowska Gozal Orchestra in Poland under the artistic direction of Piotr Borkowski, and since October 2013, she's a principal flautist with the United Chamber Orchestra and flute soloist of Motion String Orchestra in Berlin. She has recorded on German radios. She has premiered Rodrigo's Concierto Pastoral in Slovenia, and as a chamber musician, she has collaborated and recorded CDs, especially with Italian pianist Giuliano Mazzucante and Polish guitarist Jakub Kosciuszko. She currently serves as flute lecturer at the Department of Music at the State University, State German University BTU Cottbus, and at the private University Academy for Music in Berlin. And she has recorded many albums, which I recommend you checking out. She is a multi-award winning recording artist, and more recently her CDs have included Solo Bach, which has been devoted to the music of J.S. Bach, C.P.E. Bach, inspired by Rita D'Arcangelo, where she premieres world premiere recordings inspired by her own art. And more recently, which is something we'll play for you today, she has been able to, even during the COVID pandemic, record not 2 but 3 CDs. The third, which will be a world premiere coming up soon. The two are one of which is Telemann, which was released this year, 2021, and it's 12 fantasias for flute without bass. And we're going to begin actually our show with playing one of her recordings, which is really exciting for me. And this is a clip from 12 fantasias for transverse flute, TWV 40 ;2, number 1 in A major, vivace and allegro. Beautiful. That was wonderful. I hardly ever hear the music of Telemann. It's really wonderful. First of all, thank you for being on the show, Rita. It's very lovely to have you.
Thank you for the invitation. Fantastic to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, let's talk about this first. So, in spite of the COVID pandemic, in spite of everything going on, you still managed to record these albums. Can you tell us a little bit about Telemann and why you chose to feature his 12 fantasias?
Well, it has been a dream for me for a long time because this Telemann, particularly, I used to practice, all my way on during all my study time because they are one of the most important solo repertoire for flutes that we all have to learn as students and then professional. And they have been very fascinating for me because they're very beautiful pieces of music. And then, thanks actually to the pandemic, last year I was kind of it's not doing much with concerts, and then I said, okay, let's try to use this time to do something productive and something that I really need and dreamed for a long time. So I managed to organize with this recording, and I'm very happy that I found the possibility.
No, that's a really incredible because I think recordings are a great way to not only develop personally but also professionally. It's a way for people to see that you're still, like you said, productive. How has recordings, especially this one, impacted the way people see you? Do you feel like you're getting more concerts? Do you feel like there's a value in doing all these recordings?
Well, for me, it's like the most value, of course, is my artistic growth. I'm trying to see every recording like a very special moment in my artistic life. So sometimes I go by instinct to see which kind of repertoire I would like to try myself in a way, not to see how can you cope, how can you be responsible for these artistic
Yeah.
decisions. And of course, when you are doing this, people notice, which is very nice, of course. And hopefully, they can also give a message, which is my artistic view and what I'm trying to do, and the best I can do in order to present my musical ideas. And then they will also open some possibilities, and usually it does. But the first point is not I'm not thinking I'm doing this recording because I want to achieve this. Sometimes it's really like this Telemann was a dream inside me for a long time. Then I found this chance. Okay, now is the moment. I have many dreams, many ideas that I hope in the future I can do. And just sometimes you have to feel the moment. Yes. And this music is just beautiful. I agree. So that's and you can find everything every day new a new aspect. That's what the beautiful music does. Every day you can play and you find all these new things.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask, so you've done recordings of a solo Bach album with JS Bach, CPE Bach, and because of Telemann's background in Germany and actually knowing personally like Handel and JS Bach himself, how has all this informed the way you play Telemann? How do you understand this world that he's in?
Oh, sure. Yes, the more you play this Bach and Handel and Telemann, the more you start to understand the language. So for sure, the recording I did with Bach gave me a big step forward in the understanding of music of this period, and there are something that I found very different between the two of them.
Yeah.
So with Bach is something for me, at least for my personal, it's always very obvious. When I play
Oh,
Bach, I've got kind of interesting feeling, and
yeah.
it's just fantastic. You feel in peace with the world. When you play Bach, you feel that the world is just the most amazing place in the
Yeah.
universe. And also Telemann, of course, is different. It's more in a way more. I don't want to say not so deep because it's not true, but it's different in a way of the harmony, the way the structure is. It kind of gives different feelings. Yes.
Nice. And I'm sure you've heard or played Fantasias by Bach. How would you compare those with Telemann's Fantasias? 'Cause the idea of a Fantasia to me sounds like if there's more improvisation. There's certain
Yes.
themes that come through, but it's very much I can go anywhere I want with this, and I'll do whatever, and I might bring something back, but I might. How do you compare Fantasias, and what do you think of Telemann's Fantasias?
But it's very interesting because it tried to put some structure which are they were thinking that it was impossible for a solo instrument like a flute, like a fugue, passacaglia, which you think is only one voice instrument, you know? And this time to put all this form inside, which for me was very fascinating, and it works actually, because you find sometimes two instruments, two people speaking. It's just two voices, you know, even to the bass and the top, and so it's very interesting. It gives a lot of pleasure to try to make out all this structure of the music. So for sure, it's really genius, you know.
At a risk of sounding too technical for our audience, I wanted to ask, how do you distinguish the two voices? Because it's like you said, it's a single line instrument. At the risk of sounding a bit technical, and go for it if you want to. How do you make the distinguishment? Because with the piano, it's again there's different tools we can use to change color or to change kind of the voicing. What do you do, or what kind of techniques do you employ to do that?
Well, mostly it's as musical attitude, because for example, it's like when you're speaking, you know, so you are saying something, but the way there is also another subject, you know, it's like making a comma. So sometimes it's line the tam ta tam pam 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 pam. So this kind of, it's like people speaking actually. It's very fascinating, you know. And yes, even with one line instrument, you can try to have more people speaking in the language. I mean, we try. We do our best, you know. We don't have the harmony as the.
That's true. Yeah. No, you're right. I think that's very interesting that it's more up here. Like if you're aware of it in your head and in the way you want to make the music, then it'll come out.
Yes, I mean, I think so. And then the way it's show by itself, you know, if you are clear in mind, then also the technical skill will follow.
And was this the whole part that it was a solo flute works? I mean, I know Telemann also wrote concerti for flute and harpsichord and other works with more chamber music. I know you do a lot of chamber music yourself. What inspired you to just do it like a solo album?
Yeah, also because it's the only opera we have in the Baroque time complete. It's 12 fantasies, so you could do really like an album. And we are not so lucky like pianists or violinists, you know, or harpsichord, you know, organists, the thousands of repertoire that can have like an album from Telemann, you know. So that was the idea, 12 fantasy, and it's a complete opus. So that's really then that appealed to me. Yes.
Do you feel like when you recorded these 12 that, I guess I have two questions. The first question would be, have you ever played all 12 in one go? And then second question is, do you feel like there's a story within the 12? Is there some sort of narrative, rhetoric that you've discovered?
Yes, I played the all 12 for myself when I was practicing. I regret I didn't do a concert. I didn't have the chance. I hope the chance might come.
I hope so too.
Because I think it's worth it. And yes, I think there is some kind of balance in there. You know, if you play the old fantasy from 1 to 12, it makes sense, really. The way also the tonalities, the way it's show, you know, the keys. So yes, I think there is a logic, absolutely.
It's fascinating. I guess my last question before we move on from I'm fascinated with this album and everything. Do you feel like Telemann was inspired by Bach or inspired CPE Bach, or like how do you feel like there's any if there is at all any influence between these composers, and maybe with Handel as well? Do you have any thoughts about the relationship?
So I mean, I cannot know. I'm not like so deep researcher, but I would imagine because they knew each other, that I'm sure they had a great respect for each other, for sure. So I would imagine that they would looking what the colleague was doing, or was writing was for sure. So I'm sure that they could benefit from each other. Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about how they would have copied each other, you know. I think Bach, there's stories of J.S. Bach, you know, listening to a concert of Buxtehude, you know, going all the way to go hear Buxtehude perform. You have stories of J.S. Bach, you know, transcribing a lot of the music just by sight. But nowadays we just go on Spotify, 2 clicks, and we already have the music.
Even he loved Vivaldi, you know, Bach. It's very fascinating. So he was really fan of the music of Vivaldi. So, you know, it was very far away. So that's very interesting. Yes.
Yeah, you have Italian influence and the French influence. I think J.S. Bach was very open to these different influences. And speaking of being open, I think that is a good segue for what you do as well, which is I want to talk about the other projects that you do. One of which let's do this one first.
Okay.
Let's do the one where it's your 2020 album, and you have fantasias and romances from the 20th and the 21st century. So I would love to play this clip of this piece by Eugene Magalev. And I have never heard of any of these composers except for maybe Fauré and Saint-Saëns. And I just love that. I love that you are highlighting modern composers, but having them write fantasias and romances, music that I arguably would say it's a little bit more accessible for people who have never heard much of new music. It's a little bit more, I can listen to a romance. And the amazing thing is this music is so beautiful. It really is. You and your collaborative pianist, Giuliano Mazzucante, recorded these together in 2020. Could you tell us a little bit about this album and a little bit about maybe the piece we're about to play, The Romance by Magalev?
Right. Okay. So the album was also here a project that we had for a long time with my friend Giuliano. Which, we played together for many years. We are from the same city in Italy, so we know long time. Yes.
Instant bond, yeah. Piano, flute, that's
Yes.
lovely.
And so we had this repertoire. We played some of the pieces many times in concerts, and also I was discovering some composer wrote for me, like the Magali. So that was written for me by Eugene Magali. And then, so, the putting together the program was a mix of our old-fashioned pieces that we played in concert and new discovery. So I think at the end, we are very happy of the result. That to bring new music and also in a form, as you said, that, fantasy can be open to many interpretation, and romance can be very deep, and so, bring also some sadness or hope.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our goal. And about Eugene Magalev, he's a very good friend of mine. And I was guest at his house.
Wow.
Yes, it was a very great friend. And he showed me this piece for voice, the romance. And I loved very much this music. And I said, Eugene, this could be wonderful for flute. And then the day after, I just in the night, he made the arrangement for flute for me. And I played in a concert. I was staying with another friend of his family, a pianist. We played a concert in New Jersey, in Princeton, and that was just wonderful. And to give the premiere, and he was playing at the piano. So, and then since then, I always play in my concert this piece, which I really love.
That's amazing. It's so lovely to actually get to know these composers and to feel like this music is alive, and it's because the composer is there and you can play for them, and then you can develop a relationship with the composer and get to know them even more.
Absolutely, this is a wonderful part of our profession, and you see the art coming out, and I myself. I can do some little, personal composition, but I'm not a composer, I'm a performer. And to have the contact with these people is always very fascinating, the way the art comes through their mind, and it's very fantastic.
I love it. I think, by the way, I think it's a good choice of fantasia and romance, because I think of all the other works, all the other names we call pieces of music, those two kind of evoke something very quickly without, for example, like a sonata. We're like, oh, what is a sonata?
Right. Yes,
what is a prelude? Yeah. And I think with fantasia and romance, it's just, I know what this is about. And romance is so broad. It could be a happy romance, it could be a little sad, it could be melancholic, like you said. And so let's play this clip. I'm so looking forward to hearing this. This is Eugene Magalev's Romance for Flute and Piano. Wow, that was so beautiful.
Thanks.
That was really, really beautiful.
Great music, yeah. So I
Yeah. And I mean, our producer was saying, great to hear composers, contemporary composers, still writing melodies, and I think it's very true. I think we need beautiful melodies, and I was thinking this could be so beautiful as a maybe a movie, film score or soundtrack, but I think sometimes. And I love to hear your thoughts about this, especially playing beautiful music like this. Sometimes in our classical music world, it feels like it's a bit frowned on to write melodies or to play beautiful melodies, as though it's a little quote unquote cheaper entertainment. But I think there's a beautiful place for it because it really touches the heart, and the audience wants to be moved and touched, not always challenged, not always confronted. Sometimes the audience just wants to sit and relax and feel something. What are your thoughts about all this?
yes, I totally agree. You know, people come to concerts, you know, to get some emotions, some feedback, some, you know, maybe forgetting the forgetting the problems in the life, or to get some energy. So I think it's, yes, for sure. I agree totally, and I feel lucky because I know many composers which think like this. You know, it is important to touch the people with beautiful melodies and beautiful music. Yeah.
Yeah, I truly do. And I think because the music is um, a little bit less complicated. It allows you as a musician to really make it something your own, to really speak through it and have, put your emotions in, and to work with the composer and see how he felt, which poems inspired him, and really understand where the piece comes from. And I just love that. I encourage everybody who's listening to check out that album. It's just a fantastic album full of
Yeah.
beautiful music.
Thanks. May I
Look,
say maybe just one also a quick word to thank also the producer, which is Da Vinci label.
yes.
It's been also in this difficult time with pandemic. It was Mr. Filippini was fantastic, always supporting artists. This is very important, I think. So
Lovely.
special
Yeah,
thanks.
I am so glad that we still have recording people who like Mr. Was it is it Felipe or
Edmondo Filippini.
Philippine? Yeah, what wonderful to have him to still continue to support. This was released in 2020, and that was a very difficult time for many artists. So that's great. just on to the next little topic that I want to talk to you a little bit about, and that is actually personally. So you work with Sir James Galway, who's a recording artist, concertizing flautist, and I think your career resembles a lot what he does. You teach, you record, you play concerts, and we'll talk a little bit about your upcoming concerts as well. You just a musician. You've played in orchestras and you continue to play with ensembles and orchestras. My question is, how do you balance everything? How do you manage your life and still get a decent amount of sleep? Have you had any kind of advice from Sir James about how to go about doing this, and especially because a concertizing flautist is more of a rarity in our world? Do you have any ideas to share with us?
For sure. I mean, what is that inspired from Sir James is just enormous. So I'm thankful to him, all my life, and of course the his dedication to the food, the music is just incredible. And so, you can just try to emulate such dedication. And for me, also, flute was always first since I started to play, was always my life. So, for me, it's not issue when I have to do concert recording. I just practice, and I find the time to practice, even with work. And it's sometimes I think it's a big blessing, because maybe I'm tired, then I start to play the flute, and then I'm fine again.
You're not tired anymore. You're not tired.
It's great. I mean, it's of course you have to find the balance with your private life, but until now it has been very, very exciting, great to travel, to see many countries, to play. So I feel very, very, very privileged. Actually, it's a blessing for sure.
I guess more specifically, I want to ask you, how do you decide what projects to do, and how do you decide what to sometimes say no to? I mean, do you ever say no, or how do you decide, okay, maybe this is not the project I want to work on right now? I have all these great ideas, like you said, which one do I start to do, or how do I discern what to work on?
Well, sometimes some people tell me, so you have to be more on the business side, to be more to understand, that must be a business plan. But I don't know. I still cannot manage with that. I hope maybe one day. I always try to see if I find a project that really appeals to me, and I see that I can have a artistic growth. I can learn something.
Yeah.
And then I just go with all my energy. And then sometimes I don't mind. It doesn't really matter. I'm not thinking, oh, maybe this will be like a great, possibility of income, whatever. But most of the time, if you really you go with all your heart, you believe in something, then it comes also the income. It comes also the good possibility of work, So I don't know. It's kind of I'm trying. It's not nobody's as a probably truth, or nobody's perfect, but I'm trying to stay true to my talent and to my passion for music, and to to do something that I feel like if I put my time, my energy, my talent, then it's something worth it for the public as well, for the people. So also for recording, I always, if I start a new project, I think, maybe later I'm not here anymore, and then people say, oh, Rita left this, It's kind of, and it is part of my legacy in a way. I don't know. It's kind of romantic idea of recordings maybe, but still, I don't know.
I think that's very true. I mean, it might sound to some that, oh, it's a prideful thing to want to leave a legacy, but I think that's a very true value that everyone has. That's why people write books. That's why people do paintings. That's why people have albums and recordings. We want to leave something to show that your life has been so rich and so wonderful, and that you've been able to play all this music. And I think to share that with people later on, or whoever listens, even now, is a great thing to do.
Yes, and hopefully, when people would listening, they get some part of this. As performer, we are like a medium, because we're not composing the music, so that we can represent at the best what the composer did, and I think every artist has also, for some artists, for some musicians, some composers are more near, than others. And I think as a young person, you play everything, you try to play everything, but then you start to get your feeling for some music instead of others. I think it's normal.
That's interesting. So My next question for you would be to like, how are you telling your students, and maybe so it's a two-way kind of question. The first way is sort of, what do you tell your students in terms of how to prepare for a career, or to, maybe they're taking auditions, or maybe they're trying to get to be like yourself and concertize and make and do concerts. What do you tell them in terms of advice on how to do all this, or and maybe perhaps in your journey of being a concert flutist, what kind of advice has really worked for you to make a career? Because a lot of people, I would argue, want something a little bit safer perhaps, and just stay in orchestra, do your teaching, and maybe not record an album, because that takes investment of time. That it's a different time that you have to use. What would you say to people like that?
Well, especially I can relate to my students, for example. I always try to inspire them to the best they can. So to really try to master as much as possible through playing, and get inspiration about music, all the various style of music. So this for sure, be prepared as professional musician. And then of course you take every chance. So if there is any audition coming up, you try, to try. I also remember as a younger person, I was trying everything possible. Sometimes it didn't work, sometimes it worked. And for example, I really end up in Japan quite by chance, because I saw this audition in my school. I was studying Mannheim, and I saw the picture. It was such a beautiful hall. I said, well, maybe I can try to apply. And then in 6 months, I was done playing in Japan. So sometimes life is like this. Other times it didn't happen like this. It didn't work. So sometimes I think it's a mixture of destiny, but you have to try. If you stay home, you don't. This was my first teacher was telling me, the chance will not come to your house. So you have to go out, you have to do something. If you just sit in home, well, it is very true. So this for sure, and to be prepared. This is, I think, the most important, because when the chance comes, you have to be prepared. You have to know. You have to be professional. You have to know how to play, how to behave. Also, this is also a very important part. To be correct with your colleagues, to be supportive in the team, especially in orchestras. And yes, I enjoyed my time when I was playing in orchestra very much, but I always felt, I want to have more time for me. This was always something that from all my years in orchestra, that I really want to have more time for me to practice what I want to do. And orchestra is great, but of course you have to dedicate a lot of your time to that, So I think for me, like this with teaching, which I love very much, and with my solo concert, it's working very well. So.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very, very good insight and advice. I want to highlight something that you said, which struck me, but I think was very important for a lot of people to hear, perhaps, is that you wanted more time for you. You wanted more time.
Not for private. I mean, more time for my flute playing, just for me.
No, exactly. No, no, absolutely. And I think that's a very conscious choice, because you probably felt that, okay, I'm doing all these concerts with orchestra, I'm doing all these things outside, but I don't even have enough time to really develop the artist in myself.
Maybe it's also stage, because I remember, first time I played Brahms First Symphony or Beethoven Ninth, I couldn't sleep all night because such a beauty of music.
Yeah.
So, and I'm very thankful I had the chance to play several years and to play on this wonderful repertoire. That as solo flutist you don't have a Brahms concerto. You don't have the, this is so playing orchestra is a blessing. But after a while, maybe it was a natural, part of my development. And I said, okay, this is fantastic, but I want to try to have more time as for me, because also it's a kind of bit different way of playing. In orchestra you have solo part, but then you have to mix with ensemble, and so you have to be really careful on this. And also, if you want to play more solo, it's kind of different, I think, conception, from my experience at least.
Yeah, I like this idea that of course, it's a fantastic sensation of playing with orchestra and playing with people in a big ensemble with a great conductor, etc. But I like what you said about focusing a bit more time on yourself to develop as a recording artist or develop yourself as an artist, because sometimes there's a big temptation to just get an orchestral job and then you forget a lot of the dreams you might or ideas you had when you were studying, and things kind of just because you have a job and maybe you have a family and maybe you have other things come up and you have a house, you have a mortgage and all this. What are your thoughts in terms of having something secure and safe and all that versus making sure you spend enough time to develop what's your own personal practice, and you're maybe doing some projects of your own and taking some risks to do that?
Well, I think everybody is different, so everybody has to follow what's inside, So I cannot say do like this or do like this, because for some people, I have many colleagues, I have many friends in orchestra. They're very happy, and I'm happy for them. So their routine, their life, then they enjoy this way of living. So it's fantastic. So I want to try this something different for myself, and that's fair enough. So I think you cannot really say that this is better part of the other. It's, it's very personal choice. I think matter of you have inside, and you feel you live once, so you want to really try the best you can do. Especially because for me, flute, of course, it's my profession. I'm very thankful. But it's always been a way of life, and at some point you have to make living, of course. That's very essential.
Exactly.
But my bigger fear was always that I have to do another job, so I cannot play the flute now. So if I can combine to get a job and playing the flute, it's just perfect.
And the flute's such a big part of you. Wow. No, that's wonderful. So I'll be remiss without advertising and promoting a concert you did recently on the 5th November. And this was a concert for the recording that you did recently, for new music written by 3 essential elements composers. And
Yes.
there's a lot of them there. Can you tell us a little bit about this project?
It's a wonderful project. There are 9 composers for 8 countries. And it all came also here because my friend, the Vasco Pereira, which is one of the composers, wrote for me before, and they founded this group of composers, and they invited me to be performer of this of this association. And so they have this project. They wrote this new solo flute music for me, and so we did the premiere in last Friday in Berlin at the Academy for Musik where I'm working, and this was very special. One of the composers, Gary Judd, came all over from London, so it felt a big honor for me. And then the week before I did the recording, so also did another CD that is on the way, hopefully.
Wow.
So that sometimes that's by combination of friendship and people that they listened about my music and said, I want to write for Rita. So that was very, of course, for me felt very honored, and I hope that we can have further project together. I find this very interesting because it's an international group of composers and they all write beautifully. So, because this is the concept of 3 essential elements that will be the performer, the composer first, the performer and the public. So, and then to reach, that really you reach, as we said before, with beautiful music. Not just to be, because you want to be something, to make only effects, but really to have a structure, to have good music. So that's really appealed to me, and I'm very happy to be in this part of this project.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's so cool, and I love that even in spite of the world being the way it is, that you have the opportunity to play with people, to collaborate with composers, and to have these concerts, which I think is helpful for everyone. And I think the crux of it is that you made a lot of recordings, and that just leads on to other things and projects and composers hearing your music and wanting to write for you, so you record that, and then it just goes on from there, and before you know it, you're just full-time recording artist and performer.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep doing your way. Yes, for sure.
Wonderful. Well, last of all, you are a Sound Espressivo Global Competition judge. And so before my last question for you, I would like to tell everybody about the competition a little bit. And there are 5 important things to know about this competition. And please, the deadline is coming up on the 30th of November. So please get your applications in. Our dear guest today, Rita, will be one of our judges. And she'll be able to give just amazing advice and feedback, which is something that's quite unique about our competition. A unique part of that, we give immediate feedback after you play. So a lot of competitions, you go out, you play, you don't know how you played, you don't know how the judges feel, and you have no affirmation. But this competition, we guarantee immediate feedback after you play. And so it's really just an incredible part of this competition. So it allows you to know what to work on, how the judges felt, some affirmation, maybe some suggestions, and it's really good to get that, especially for young musicians. We have no time limits for semi-finalists and finalists, so you can go about playing the 12 Telemann fantasias for flute if you if you wanted to, or 12. You could also, and there's also no repertoire requirements. So again, you can program what you want depending on the kind of music that you like to play or want to explore. We have over $100,000 US of prizes, and these are not cash prizes but value prizes with opportunities, management, graphics design, scholarships, and to all festivals and masterclasses and performance opportunities all over the world, including the Carnegie Hall, which is just a really valuable resource for young musicians to discover themselves, to find their own paths and careers. And last of all, just like today's show, it's all live broadcasted. And this is a really important part of it, which we want to tell you about, but also to introduce to the world, which you can play at the comfort of your own home or in a hall of your own choosing. But it's live. It's broadcasted to all the major streaming platforms, and people get to hear you from all over the world, and it increases your exposure and increases the people knowledge of you. So we're really happy to be announcing this. Our website is below and please check out our social media as well at sound.espressivo.competition on Instagram. We also have a really wonderful website where you can apply. So get your application in. We're accepting applications until the 30th of November 2021. And with that, one last question for you, Rita, before we end the show, and which is, what would you say are the 3 or more best ways to prepare for a competition or for an important performance?
Oh, okay. Very interesting question. Of course, to know all the repertoire very well, maybe to give yourself time to learn. Don't arrive the last minute. That's always a bit dangerous. And then what helped me in the past days, always to make some how do you say, trial, so you play for friends, you play for teachers, so you say, okay, now the first round, second round, or I don't know, program for the best audition, for example. And then probably try to take it as a good challenge to learn good repertoire and, play it like as a concert. Don't think about I have to win, because, I remember also as a younger person, sometimes you get disappointed, you did a lot of work. Sometimes other time you are happy, but doesn't mean maybe, there are other flutists that were also good as you, it's always a matter of situations. And so we have to take really chance of playing good music for the public, I think.
Wonderful. So be prepared, play for others, and have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. And really just, I love that. Thank you so much. Well, with that, we're going to end the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening, for watching. Thank you, Rita, for being such an incredible and gracious guest. And I love listening to your music, and I encourage everybody to check out her music. She has an upcoming concert on Sunday, the 12th of December, 2021 at 6 p.m. in the Staubenhaus Concerti in Breisgau. If you're in Germany or
Yes.
You're in Europe, please go check it out. What will you'll be playing with your guitar partner, right?
Yes, we have a good friend of mine. We recorded also previous albums, and we are preparing another project for future. So
of course. Wonderful.
It's great to play together this concert. We are looking forward very much.
Absolutely. So please check out this concert if you're available. Check out her music, Rita D'Arcangelo. She's all over YouTube. Everything could be heard there. And you can buy her albums on Amazon or any kind of big CD label. She's also on Spotify. Please check her out. She's just an incredible concertizing flautist. I also want to give big thanks to the Sandro Carbone competition board and everybody who's behind it, all the directors, producers, especially Ante Bodrich-Kudrich, who's my director and producer today. And with that, we have more broadcasts coming to you the following weeks, and we hope you can check out our social media, our website, for more clips and interviews. We are amassing such a great bunch of people for our judges, and we're interviewing them and talking to them, so please check us out. And with that, we'll see you next time. Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you again, Rita. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you to you all, and thank you to the organization. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Espressiva Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists, like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.